Welcome to the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. We don't shy away and keep secrets here. We empower you with education, telling you the truth about all things aesthetic medicine while encouraging you to be the best version of yourself. It's time to look great and feel good doing it. This is your host, mom, speaker, and board-certified physician, Dr. Judith Borger.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 90 of the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. Today, I am joined by none other than the incredible Dr. Janice Rice. She is, like myself, a board-certified emergency medicine physician, aesthetic expert, and she owns and operates Lake Erie Aesthetics and Wellness in Sandusky and Lake Avon, Ohio. Dr. Rice and I are going to talk about really her transition and in general transitioning from ear into the med spa world. And I get a lot of messages and questions on this every day. So I'm sure this is going to be a fascinating and useful conversation to many. Dr. Rice has really a decade of experience in the ER and a passion for helping women feel confident in their skin as she bridges the gap between high-stakes clinical medicine and the art of beauty and self-care. Now, there is one slight disclaimer on this episode. She is also a mom of two, and you may notice a little bit of background noise from her 6-year-old in the background. Again, it's mom life, it's entrepreneur life, it's real life. So, her story is one of grit, grace, and reinvention, and she is here to share how she's building a life and a career in aesthetics on her own terms. So please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Janice Rice. So welcome, Dr. Rice. I think this is such an important conversation to have as sort of burnout is at an all-time high. I feel like I get weekly and bi-weekly messages of people that want to transition their careers. And I love that we are both ER. We now sort of talked in the pre-show. We have been in this parallel, like spinning orbit for the last decade. And so I think it's going to be great to really talk with each other and to our listeners about what does it look like to transition your career. I mean, for us, it's both from ER to aesthetics, but really from anything to anything else.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have been in the same orbit for a long time and always commenting and supporting each other's posts and businesses and helping each other answer questions and things like that. So it's always been such a good relationship. And I'm excited that we're finally face to face and on a podcast together. It's exciting.
Yeah. So take us all the way back from the beginning. Let's start kind of chronologically. So you were doing ER. Were you doing full-time ER, community ER? What were you doing?
Yeah. So after residency, I actually backing way up in residency, I met an attending at a conference and he did aesthetics as well. This was back in probably 2010-ish. And he's like, oh yeah, here's my card. I have a business. This is what I do kind of on the side as well as EM. And I was like, well, that's really cool. I never thought about that because you think once you pick your residency and you're on your track, like that's it. You can't switch, you can't go back, or you have to do residency all over again. And then I love EM, but I'm like, as every EM doc probably is, we're just very ADHD and we're multifaceted multitaskers. And I'm like, well, I want more. So
that was actually my second question. So you were working EM full time. What was it that made you seek out something else to do? Was it because you initially wanted to get away from EM? Was it because you were bored? Like what made you pursue aesthetic training?
And this was back, right in the beginning. I just think I thought it was cool to have something else going on as well. And this was before I had kids, before I had a family, before all that. And you just have a lot of time. And I'm like, well, this is cool too. So I finished my ER residency. And then as soon as I got done with residency, I signed up for some private training classes for Botox and filler. And then I was like, okay, I actually really like this. And that's kind of where it really started in the baby stages.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, and I can totally see that because for most physicians, we spent like 12 years just learning, learning, learning. And most of us have such a thirst for learning. And you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. EM is sort of like the jack of all trades, master of none. So why
Mhm.
not add like another tool to your tool belt?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think at first I started with working out of little salons or hair salons, nail salons, people that just wanted to add that into their own business already. So I did a lot of driving around and going to different places and carrying my little cooler bag of Botox with everything in it that I needed and doing private parties, home parties. And it just sort of, I don't know, gave me something else to do other than just EM, which is not boring by any means. Of course, it's very fast paced and exciting, but like you're saying, you just want to learn more. And because we are a jack of all trades, it's kind of nice to dive in and be a little more specialized in a certain area as well.
Yeah, and I just, I mean, for me, it was also that I really missed that creative side, that right brain side. I didn't do it right after residency. I waited. I practiced for several years before I even started. And
Mhm.
at that point, I was really like, EM is amazing, but it's very algorithmic.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's very left brain. And I was really missing something for my creative side and also
Mhm.
to have that relationship with patients because the more critical patients are in the ER, the less we actually get to know them. We don't ever
Mhm.
get to chit chat with them, not only because most of them are really sick, but also because there's all this time pressure. And so I really loved like sort of having that relationship, especially with female patients.
Yeah, I find myself sometimes getting behind in the ER if I have a patient. Typically, I would gravitate towards the younger female patient, and we would just do this deep dive into how are you eating? How are you sleeping? What are your stressors? Have you listened to this podcast? Have you thought about meditation? And then you kind of get lost in that conversation and then behind in the ER because you have everybody else waiting for you. But I do really enjoy having a little bit more of that connection with my patients, knowing about their weddings and their family and their pregnancies and whatever the breakups they're going through or whatever it may be. You can get that relationship. And that is definitely missing from EM, which sometimes is a blessing when you have those critical, really hard cases. You don't have the time to make that emotional connection as deep, which is also good. It's protective for us, but you do miss some of that. And the creative side, like you were saying, I grew up doing music and performance and synchronized swimming and all of this right brain stuff. And then in the ER, you get a little because you have to think on your feet and shift gears and how can I creatively like solve this problem? But it is very algorithm. Let's follow the protocols and things like that.
Yeah, so you and I kind of started the same. I
Oh,
started with only like a $40,000 investment, which really I spent on multiple trainings because I did not have a mentor. So I flew to New York many, many times to get trained before I really injected people. And then I spent the rest of that money stocking up on products. And then I had sort of what I call now my hobby phase of my business, where I would do exactly the same. I did a lot of Botox parties. I was letting out of a salon and spa. I had some people that I knew well come to my home. So it sounds like you kind of went through, I don't know what you call your phase. I call mine my hobby phase too with your business.
yeah. I think at the time when I first started, I was in a structure of 7 on, 7 off in the ER. And this, like I said, was pre kids. So I'm like, well, what do I do with a whole week off? And then you kind of get this itch to learn more, want to do more, want to use your skill set. I love procedures. That's why I chose emergency medicine. It's heavy procedure based. And this was a way to get even more procedures under my belt and use that creative artistic side too.
So when did you decide or what happened for you to make the jump from like the hobby stage to the real stage? I will let you answer. And then just for the interest of our listeners, I will tell them when I made that jump. But
Yeah.
what was it that made you go from sort of this stage where, right, you're not really making money, you're doing it for fun,
Yeah.
like you have a limited amount of time and clientele, but you keep your overhead low. So actually, I was making a little bit of profit just because I had zero overhead, essentially, other than like a
Right.
sublet. But really at that time, I wasn't decreasing how much I worked. I wasn't buying back my time. It wasn't
Yeah.
a high like revenue producing business by any means. Like it was a little hobby business that I enjoyed, I loved, made a tiny bit of money, but I was still working full time. So
Exactly.
what made you go from that stage to I have a med spa, or what was the next stage?
Yeah. And it took a little while for me to get there because it's something I always thought about. And then it was hard to make that jump because I think I was in my own way. Like, well, I don't know how to have a business and I don't know how to do this and do that. And I didn't really know anybody at the time. This was before I knew you that was doing really the same thing. And then I moved from Toledo to Cleveland. And then I started having kids, and I was like, there's no time, there's no time. But it always was like this itch that I wanted to have a brick and mortar and have a business, and it would be so much fun and all these things. Then somebody saw something that I posted on Facebook and reached out to me, and it was actually the husband of the nurse practitioner that I co-own the business with. He saw a post that I made on Facebook and was like, hey, have you ever thought about collaborating with a nurse practitioner in the aesthetics world? And I was like, I don't really know where I want to go with it right now, but I'm open to a conversation. So she called me, and this was in 2021, I believe it still was. And she called me and was like, hey, I want to do aesthetics. I need a collaborator. And I was like, okay, that sounds awesome. I've always wanted to do this as well and put more time and energy into it. I love it. And I was like, I don't want to just be on the sidelines. I want to do this with you. If we're doing it, like I want to be involved as well. And she was like, great, because it's a lot to take on by yourself. So she just sort of gave me that push to just jump in more with her. And she sort of took the lead because she had already worked for a chain type of med spa. So she knew a lot of that back end stuff that I didn't know. And we just sort of jumped in feet first and off we went. And it's been a wild ride ever since.
That's awesome. So the one thing I want to say to our listeners is that what I really want to point out is that Dr. Rice is a true collaborator, right? We see a lot of these mid-level owned med spas, and in most states, at least North Carolina, mid-levels are not supposed to own their own businesses. 51% is supposed to go to a physician.
Mhm.
And if you have a supervising physician, they're actually supposed to be truly supervising. So like Dr. Rice, she's in the business, she's making the protocols. She is there actually supervising. She's there doing if there's a complication, doing the complications. Like that's exactly what I do. I mean, I solo own, so it's a very different, and I employ my other people, but they
Mhm.
go through my training. I'm their medical director. I'm there. There's a lot of very illegal activity in this country
Yeah.
where in a lot of states, physician assistants, nurse anesthetists, nurse practitioners, nurses are not supposed to independently own and operate because technically they're practicing medicine without a license. However, they get some person somewhere to essentially rent their license, sign off on things. So it looks good from the board, but they're not getting any true supervision. So first of all, big, big respect that you weren't one of those people who was like, oh, that sounds good. Like you pay me X much and I just sign. But I also want to explain to our listeners that if you do go to certain places, because safety is so important to me, education is so important to me, that really, like even in my town, there's people that have like PM&R doctors 200 miles away signing off their charts, and that's not what's supposed to happen. And I
Yeah.
promise you that PM&R doctor knows nothing about aesthetics.
Yeah. And that was a big thing for me too. If I was going to do this with her, I just didn't feel comfortable being somebody who signs off and just is like, oh, okay, do whatever. And she wasn't either. She is very, very stickler about the rules and regulations and making sure that we are like correct per the board of pharmacy.
Compliant. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that eased her mind as well when we went into this together, that I'm actually there and not in Texas or somewhere random that's renting the license. And it is crazy that a lot of physicians will open up their liability and their license to practices that they don't even know what's going on behind those doors. And they aren't trained at all in aesthetics, maybe. Who knows, oftentimes. So when they come to you with a burn from a laser or a VO or a ptosis or whatever else the complication may be, they don't know what to do with that. And I just don't understand how physicians could be comfortable with that, knowing how much work it takes to get where you are. It's just wild.
Well, and you're really kind of putting the safety and the well-being of your patients not at the forefront, right? So you talked about really not having entrepreneurial skills. Now, I had none either. So I spent a lot of years learning entrepreneurial skills. And actually, that's how I decided to make my hobby business a real business. Is I joined this coaching program that was run by somebody who has a 7-figure business. And I sort of got introduced into the sphere of physician entrepreneurs. And suddenly, like, entrepreneurship was normalized. And I then joined like another coaching program, and it was all for physician entrepreneurs. And that is the moment that I was like, oh, I don't even have a sales goal. I don't even I realized how much of a hobby business I really had. And I was like, I actually love this business. I actually love doing this. I'm going to make this a real business. And then I spent the next couple of years learning everything I could about entrepreneurship. And I still do. I love being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I love learning more about, I'll always be reading something on marketing or operations or this or that. Like, I love learning about it, but I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. Did you ever think you were going to be an entrepreneur?
No, not at all. My older brother is the sales guy. He is so great at what he does. He's crazy skilled at like sales, marketing, business, all this stuff. And I just thought, well, I'm doing medicine and he has that. And I thought it was cool, but I really didn't know much about it. And he took all these business and finance courses. And I'm like, well, I do science courses and this is what I'm supposed to do to be a doctor. And then as I got older and then got into the business world a little bit with hobby business, and then joining on with a brick and mortar. And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I just dove into everything that I can, like every Instagram, like Gary V and Dan Martell. Like, I just follow everybody that I can that talks about business. Chalene Johnson, I think I listen to every podcast that she has about building your tribe and owning a business. And there's so many people out there giving out pretty much free information that you can consume, little tidbits all the time that really help grow and kind of center how you want to raise your business up. And then I also did Marketing Impact Academy with Chalene Johnson. And I listened to, because I do a lot of driving, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. That has helped a lot, especially now that I'm busier with the business and have kids and have to be the breadwinner and still work ER and own the home and do all the things. That's helped me kind of offload and outsource a lot. And then I also took a business course with Darren Hardy. I did a virtual business course that's like 3 days long. And that was like intense, deep dive, 8 hours a day, but just so great. So much like gold information there. So yes, it's constant. It's constantly changing and growing. And with AI, with everything, there's so much to learn. Every day you can learn something new.
Yeah. And I do the same thing. Like, I definitely have Audible while driving, like listen to so many books on business. And so let's talk about so first of all, when you joined forces with the nurse practitioner, did you guys self-finance? Did you have to take out a loan? Like, how did that all work?
No, we didn't take out any loans. We didn't want investors. We just really didn't want to deal with any of that. We wanted to do it ourselves and own it ourselves. So we put in equal parts, and I can't remember off the top of my head even what it was because it seems like forever ago, but it was maybe like 30 grand-ish each that we put into the business with rent and startups and licenses and malpractice costs and those types of things. But we were luckily able to do that on our own without investors. But that is an avenue that people can go if they want to start bigger. You can get investors. But I preferred starting smaller and building and then able to use our own funds to put back in.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I had self-funded, as I said, I started, and the first money that I put in, it was really because products are expensive, right? It was really all about training. As I said, flew to New York 6 or 7 times, and then investing in toxin and things like that to get started. And then since then, I have just reinvested in the business, reinvested in the business, reinvested in the business, and I've never once taken a loan. So
Right.
tell me how you have grown your business since then, from the start of Lake Erie Aesthetics. How have you grown it since?
Yeah. We started in Sandusky, Ohio, which really at the time did not have any aesthetics place. There were a couple of small, more like, oh, I do this on the side type of things. And Sandusky, Ohio, or Cedar Point, if you've ever heard of it, is just a small town on Lake Erie. And it's not a big city. It's not some crazy rich area. So it was sort of just a leap of faith that, hey, I know there's at least 10 people in this town that I've been injecting for 10 years. And if we can start there, we can go somewhere with this. So we started here in Sandusky and just word of mouth. I have a big family. We know a lot of people. Amber is also born and raised in Sandusky. She knows a lot of people, and we just had great community support, tons of friends and family that supported us kind of getting off the ground and everything, and dealt with the craziness of how do you even work the credit card machine at checkout at first, and building up and keeping our dream alive by supporting us on social media and coming in for our events and things like that. And then after the first year being open in Sandusky, we were able to open a second location in Avon Lake, which is, again, still right on Lake Erie, but about 40 minutes east. So there was just a little spot there that looked like, hey, this might be a good idea for a second location. So then having 2 locations also helps feed your business.
What made you decide that it was time to have a second location?
Well, at the time I lived in Avon Lake and we were busy in Sandusky and I was traveling a lot. And I was like, we might as well open a second one here and have that. I have since moved to Sandusky because a lot of family stuff and my whole family is here. And now both of us travel out to Avon Lake when we need to. But that's initially why we picked it and why we were kind of like, okay, we have a solid start in Sandusky. Let's see how we can do with a little rented space out here in Avon Lake. And then it just kept kind of building from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, where do you want to go from here?
Oh my goodness. So we have some really big things on the horizon, so way back in the day, this again, we're taking it back to like 2010, 9, 10. I was also in Beachbody, like a lot of people probably were. And I loved fitness. I loved like nutrition. I had a nutrition coach for a long time. I had a life coach for a long time. We still talk about nutrition and fitness and health and overall wellness. And my dream has always been to have the aesthetics business, but also a full wellness center where there's a gym and a nutrition line and things like that. So our goal for this coming year is we just added on the upstairs space to our Sandusky Med Spa, and we're going to have a Pilates studio with, I know I'm so excited, with reformers and like sound bowl therapy and yoga and red light therapy, and sort of dive into the body wellness side in the upstairs portion of our spa. So that's kind of on the horizon for this year. And I'm so excited about that. And then along with that, I've been looking at different supplement lines, nutrition lines that I can kind of tailor to the type of clients that we get into our spa. Everybody in Northern Ohio needs vitamin D and just different things like that. I want to tailor to the community and the people that we serve to just get them to their healthiest point possible.
That's amazing. Like you, I'm obsessed with Pilates, and that would be my dream. Unfortunately, I don't have space. Do you own your building or do you rent it?
We rent, and there's an upstairs space that was kind of not being utilized. And it was basically just a big open studio already with a few rooms in the back. So it was sort of the perfect layout already. So we went to the people that own it, which are good family friends, and said, hey, we want the upstairs too, we think. And they wanted to update it anyway. So they're updating it all for us and getting it ready to go. And we're going to go from there.
Wow, that is so exciting. I can't wait to like follow and see what it does, because that's really taking it to the next level. Now, we talked a lot about how you grew your business. Now, parallel from that, obviously, like you and I know that you don't go from starting a business to making it so profitable that suddenly you can quit your day job unless, you're either have a lot of starting capital or you have investors or things like that.
Right.
What I did was sort of like what is the concept of buying back my time, where I sort of slowly decreased my shifts. Obviously, I went from 12 shifts a month to 10 shifts a month to then I worked 6 a month for a really long time. And now I'm very per diem just because I still kind of want to do emergency medicine, but I'm not really financially dependent on it anymore. How did sort of as you dialed up your business, what did you do with your ER work, like in full disclosure?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're describing is what I did. I used to do 18 shifts a month, and then I went to 16, and then it was like 12. But at that same time, I was the director of our ER as well. So I was making the schedule and doing the meetings and all the stuff that needs done. And when somebody was sick, I had to cover. And that just, as the med spa grew, that got to be way too taxing. So I came to this crossroads of, do I keep pushing forward in administrative stuff in the ER, or do I really focus on our business? And I stepped back from the directorship because it was just a lot. And having a business and a directorship and ER shifts, it was just making me crazy. So I stepped back from that, which opened up a lot of free time as well. And I hung around like 12 shifts for a while. And now I'm down to 10 shifts a month. And the reason I'm still staying enough shifts in the ER is because, at the start of all this, sorry, backing up even more, at the start of all this, Amber is a nurse practitioner in the urgent care. And she stayed full-time and I stayed full-time, and we were trying to build this together. So we're finally at a point where she can quit her urgent care and come full-time in the spa, which then I'm not quite needed like on deck at all times, like in the spa at all times. So I'm hanging around 10 for now until we continue to grow. And then I'll keep trimming down as we keep growing.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I do also feel like with me doing per diem and I'm doing a little bit of locums, that at the time that this episode will air, that will be over. It has given me a new joy for emergency medicine, because now emergency medicine is my hobby and it's so fun. Like I get to like go in and teach some residents and see patients and save some lives and like all this administrative administrative BS that really I think is a big source of our burnout. I'm always like, oh, I'm per diem. I don't think that pertains to me. Just gonna ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also love like how casually you're like, oh, I'm just going to go in and save some lives. It's hilarious how casually we're just like, oh, yeah, we're just going to go in and save a life, do a chest tube, and then go home.
But that's what it is. Like that is really what it is when you're so per diem that you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I work on Monday and then I'll see you at some point.
Yeah. And it is nice to get like a little buffer between the day in and day out of hospital administration. I mean, I come from a hospital that has wonderful administration, so I don't want it to come off that way, but it's just the daily in and out and like this metric and that metric. And don't forget to chart this. And don't forget that you have to do your time zero and this and that. Da, da, da. You're just like, oh my God, I can't remember 50 million things to do. It just becomes a lot in the ER. So it does make it more fun and less like I'm back again tomorrow and again the next day and again the next day. And it's really hard. And I feel like as I've gotten older as well, ER has gotten a little more difficult in the sense that I had kids and it became a lot more emotional because I just think as you age, and especially if you have kids, you just have this larger understanding of life and how precious everything is. And EM got a lot more emotional for me with the traumas and pediatric stuff. I don't know how peds EM docs.
I do PCM.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that's like all I do. But yeah, no, I hear you. And I think and what I mean that I don't mean that we don't have wonderful administrator, but I think
Yeah.
administrative tasks
Yeah.
is really a big reason why people burn out.
Yeah.
It's not because we don't just go in and it's like a glorified like TV series where we go in and we only do the things that we're good at, like seeing
Mhm.
the patients and making the decisions and making the orders. If that was all there was, we would all love ER. But
Yeah.
instead, it's the charting requirement and it's
Yeah.
the screens you have to click through because they think your patient's flagged for sepsis. So every time you get into their chart, you got to kill 18 screens, even though you're like, they're not septic, they're an SVT, like, right? And then the unpaid work too, that is like all of the online modules and all
Mhm.
of a lot of the
Mhm.
meetings aren't paid. So when I mean administrative burden, I don't mean it as a judgment on administration, even though there's
Yeah.
definitely more malignant administrations. I think that having talked to enough ER docs, I think the non-patient stuff is the
Yeah.
stuff that gets people burnt out.
For sure. Totally. And all the metrics that we're constantly having to hit. Did you get your sepsis bundle? Did you get your fluids? Well, you fell out on this. And why did you fall out on that? And then a quality review. And it's like, well, because I was seeing 20 people at once at the same time, and I missed this one thing. And it's hard because we're always under such scrutiny and we're the opening arms to the hospital. So everything kind of starts in the ER and can go from there. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, as well on the non-clinical stuff or non-actual patient-centered clinical stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is hard sometimes. It's funny when you talk to people like not in the hospital world or emergency medicine world or physician world. It's like, oh, I don't have vacation time or paid time off, or I don't have a sick day. There's you just work and you have to work and there's nothing. So that can lead to some of that burnout too, because you're constantly stressed, especially when becoming a mom. The kids get sick, the daycare is closed, the teachers, whatever is happening, and you have to figure it out because there's no such thing as a call off or a sick day or time.
Yeah. And you live and die by schedule.
Yes. My schedule is crazy. When I show people, I think it gives them an MI.
Oh, let's talk about that. I do a lot of coaching and teaching on
Mhm.
intentional time management.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I know you're kind of a master of scheduling too. So
Mhm.
would you just as an extra bonus tell people like what are your like best tips for managing all the balls in the air,
Yeah.
managing a business and life and whatever without really feeling burnt out? Because I think that's part of our conversation too, is that even though it seems like we're doing more and we're doing a lot, I think both I assume, like, I'm speaking for me, but I assume the same is for true. Like, I feel very happy. I feel very fulfilled. I feel very less stressed
Mhm.
than I did when I was just doing the full-time kind of grind.
Yeah. And that comes with time and experience, and I think age as well. I think especially female physicians are ingrained to feel like they have to do everything at all times. We can't ask for help. That's weakness. We have to just keep going and deal and deal. And there's still times, don't get me wrong, that you're owning your own business and there's something to deal with every day. Whether it's a patient complaint or schedule changes or a call off of an injector or something. There's always something. But the more that you can outsource, and I know that you're very like pro outsourcer as well, the more that you can outsource, then the more that you can focus on what is going to move the needle for you financially, emotionally, stress management, whatever that needle is in that category, the more you can outsource, the more you can do. So I did this deep dive and this exercise with my life coach many moons ago. And basically, you list everything you do on a day to day basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and you rate it. This is a 10. I love this. This is a 9. It's still like really up there for me. These things over here are a 1. I hate doing it, but it's on my schedule. But I need to get rid of that. You start tackling those ones and outsourcing laundry or landscaping or lawn care or whatever it might be. And people might think, well, I don't have the finances to do that, but there's formulas out there. You can find them on the internet. You do have the finances to do it because it's going to free up your time for a higher ticket price. It's $50 for a lawn mow, and you could be in the spa making $2,000 on a filler patient instead. So really looking at that whole picture and outsourcing a lot is the number one priority.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember one of the things that I outsource, which is my favorite thing to outsource, is like I hate taking my car in for services and oil changes.
Hate
It
it.
is like on the list of things I hate the most. So I have a dude. And like, and again,
Mhm.
once I can't, like, once he stops doing it, like, it's a perfect job for a college kid. You get paid $20 an hour to take my car to the dealership and play on your phone while you're there. And then I give you my
Yes.
credit card and you pay and you take it back. I mean, if I would have been in college, I would have been like, that's a great deal. Like, right?
That's
But just
simple.
the fact that I don't have to spend one of my precious days doing that,
Yeah.
like, makes my entire life so much better.
Yes. Yes. Now, if I could just construct a gas station in my own driveway, because that's the other thing I hate is going to get gas. But
Or
yeah,
get an electric car.
I know I should.
I'm actually considering that as a second car for exactly that reason. I'm like, ooh, if next year when my car is paid off, like I get an electric one, I'd never have to get gas again.
Because I hate stopping for gas. It's one of my pet peeves. It's cold. The machine never works.
Yeah. So whatever that is for you, you're right. I'm
Mhm.
a chief outsourcer. So two questions I ask everybody who's an injector.
Yeah.
And these are, what is your favorite treatment to get personally?
Oh,
And then the second question of that is, what is your favorite treatment to do on patients?
oh
Or
my gosh. That is hard because I like a lot of things. My favorite treatment to get is not actually an injection, but I am a big IPL, BBL fan.
Mhm.
I am Irish and English. I'm very freckly, a lot of sunspots. So I like my IPL or BBL treatments to clear up my skin and get some of those spots to calm down and fade away. So that's probably my favorite for my personally. And injectable wise, just Botox or Dysport.
Oh, yeah. I feel like the question should really be with or without Botox
Yeah,
because none of
that's
us
just
would give up our
standard.
Botox. We're like, pry that needle out of my hands.
Yeah,
Okay.
standard because it just keeps it a little fresh right there. But yeah, so those are my favorite things. And then my favorite service to perform, I really, really love mid-face filler. It's just the foundation of the face. I feel like it's very artistic to get those nice high cheekbones, balancing the face. And with most of my clients, that's where everything starts. You build that really nice mid face and go from there. So that's probably
I 100% agree about that. I call it the trusses of the face.
Yeah.
Like the trusses for every building. No
Mhm.
matter what somebody comes to me for filler wise, I'm like, well, we got to do the cheeks first. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever we do, got to do the cheeks first.
Yeah.
Hey, so it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for being so honest and vulnerable and really sharing your story. Now, I know you do a lot of mentoring and coaching, just like myself, because really it sounds like for you and I, when we started, we didn't really have mentors and coaches in the same way that they're available now. I mean, it's because, again, there is still a little bit of stigma, which I think is very like protective of the turf from some of the plastic surgeons and stuff, to be like, oh, well, you're non-core, whatever that means. But yet they would let all of their nurses inject, which I think is always hilarious. Like, I'm a physician, I have way more training, and that's all I do. I have a very good relationship with my local plastic surgeon now, and he always says, like, you do so much more non-surgical aesthetics than I do. Like,
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
skill level at this is so much higher than me. And of course, I do a lot of weight loss too. So I send him a million patients for
Yeah.
their post weight loss, tummy tucks, boobs, and all of that stuff. So we
Yeah.
have a great relationship.
Yeah.
But really, going back to coaching and mentoring, I know you have coached and mentored and helped along many people. So if there's somebody listening who is interested in working with you, would you just share what you do and how people can reach you?
Yeah. So reaching me through my Instagram is usually the easiest at Ask Dr. Rice. So my Instagram is probably the easiest. That's where I'm most active, sharing silly reels and stuff like that that I love doing. I love making all those silly content. I think it's fun. And yes, I love to coach people on either making that switch from hospital medicine and burnout to aesthetic medicine, or even if you're staying in EM or hospital medicine or family practice or anything, just learning how to outsource, buy back your time, things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's an entrepreneur and starting a small business, but a busy working mom. And how do we manage our time and how do we outsource effectively for that person? Because everybody's different. Some people might like the oil changes and going to sit at the car dealership for a couple hours and get that downtime, and other people might hate it. So just really tailoring things to that person is a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I think you're absolutely right, because I feel like with all that stuff, we have to clarify your priorities first, because your
Yeah.
priorities might be different than my
Yeah.
priorities. So ask Dr. Rice for anybody. Of course, if you are in Sandusky, Ohio, or Avon Lakes, Ohio, Lake Erie Aesthetics, you can in person get a consult, get treatments by Dr. Rice there. We will link all of her things in show notes, both her Instagram and her website address and everything else. Thank you so much again for being here, and thank
Yeah.
you everybody at home for listening.
Yes. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Aesthetic Doctor podcast with Dr. Judith Borger. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. Follow Dr. Borger on Instagram at Dr. Borger and find more online and ways to work with Dr. Borger at www.theaestheticdoctor.com. Until next time, be well.